of all the stories we have talked to you about today, we, of course, have angled them in a way that essentially talks to you about the Big Four agenda, which, of course, has been around affordable healthcare, affordable housing, manufacturing, and food safety. And with the budget coming up, it is expected that this will essentially be one of the areas of focus. And for most people, they're asking, where will this money come from? Where is the taxation going to happen? Well, with us in studio to discuss just this, well, is a gentleman with many years' experience around the budget. And of course, his name is Maurice Moneki. He is Associate Director at PwC. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start off with a quick, just a quick glance at the budget. For many years in the past, we've seen a state where we consistently expand, essentially expenditure. So we are saying that our needs last year are bigger this year, not just because of inflation, but also because of course, bigger population, so bigger services to fill, that sort of thing. The question then is, are we expanding our collection fast enough to match the demand?
I think, thank you very much for your question. And I think, the jury is out there whether we're actually expanding the tax base to manage the expenditure by the government. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is, maybe we need to start with the basics. Mm-hmm. What do we mean by expanding the tax base? And what does deepening the tax base mean? Mm-hmm. So what we've seen the government focusing a lot is around the deepening of the tax base. And what do I mean by this? Mm-hmm. I mean that the government is increasing the tax rates on the same people that have been paying their taxes. Mm-hmm. So for example, there's been talk about 35% corporate tax rate on mm-hmm. companies that are already paying tax at 30%. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to change the narrative to expanding the tax base, which means bringing more people into the tax bracket. Then that way, the government will be able to collect more taxes. Mm-hmm. And what we are thinking about, what government should be thinking about, is how do you then tax the untaxed? Mm-hmm. We have a lot of businesses or the informal sector that are actually not paying their rightful mm-hmm. share.
Let me stop you right there, because it has been said in the past that, so to say, not to point fingers, but that the fact that what you're saying would call for innovation, and the approach that we have currently is simply lazy government that has not been innovative enough or quick on its feet enough to start to talk to, well, the sectors of the economy that we are calling informal. Yet these are sometimes very, very large portions of the economy and contain quite a bit of money.
Yes, you're right. I think there's been a challenge about how does government go targeting that sector. Mm-hmm. And I would want to take you back to what the Kenya Revenue Authority have come up with their vision, what they call their Vision 2018. Mm-hmm. And they've actually identified that there's a big segment of the society which is called the informal sector that needs to be taxed. Mm-hmm. And maybe the question we need to then be asking is, mm-hmm. what has KRA or the government done to tap into this sector? Mm-hmm. As you say, innovation, what areas of innovation should they be focusing on? Mm-hmm. And then getting those people in that sector to pay taxes. I'll give you a simple example of maybe what we need to do around the area of innovation does not even have to be complex. Mm-hmm. It could be something very simple like coming up with a flat rate of tax, or mm-hmm. what you call the turnover tax, mm-hmm. which then you help the people in that sector mm-hmm. not to worry about doing books of accounts.
But we've seen turnover tax introduced before. Yeah. It hasn't had much in terms of traction. More recently, we've seen a thing that is being called a presumptive tax. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can talk to us about that and explain what it is. But essentially, what if the cost of tackling the issues that you're talking about then becomes more than the revenue that you raise? Then that creates a sort of catch-22 situation, which I think is what has been the case previously.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think turnover tax was introduced a few years ago, mm-hmm. and then it disappeared, and we don't know what really happened. Mm-hmm. And now we have presumptive tax that is being introduced. Mm-hmm. And I think if you look at historically, presumptive tax was actually a tax that was there in existence mm-hmm. many years ago, mm-hmm. targeting mainly the agricultural sector. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to go back to the question of what did not work around these areas of tax, and mm-hmm. what should we be doing as government? What should the government be doing? What should the tax industry or practitioners be supporting the government in doing to make it successful, rather than running back to the easier way of taxing the already overtaxed business community. Yes.
Well, of course, that informal sector is still quite large out there. And for many, many people, the fact that some of these people don't have proper infrastructure, are itinerant, meaning they're not in the same place every day, does pose indeed big questions. But we'll deal with those questions after the break. We want to proceed on a short break now. But when we do come back on the other side of the break, of course, the conversation around what exactly then government needs to do to tweak its tax collection in these areas to, well, reflect a bit more revenue. And of course, the conversation with Dr. Kevit Desai around the TVET conversation is still waiting for us on the other side of that break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.